In the 1970s, the streets of South Boston were quiet, cold, and strictly defined by their boundaries. This was a neighborhood that operated strictly on its own terms. Neighbors relied entirely on each other, and that fierce loyalty bred a deep, generational suspicion of anyone from the outside, especially law enforcement. The geography itself reinforced this isolation. The physical layout functioned as a natural wall, keeping residents insulated and the rest of the city entirely disconnected. But beneath that mandated local silence, the underworld was fractured. The streets were disorganized, creating a volatile power vacuum waiting to be filled. James Bulger was a hyper-calculating strategist. While others fought for immediate status, he focused on identifying long-term vulnerabilities within the neighborhood's social fabric. His greatest asset was a perfect read on the local psychology. He knew how to weaponize the community's ingrained distrust of authority to consolidate his power. The district's isolation provided ideal conditions for a dominant, localized criminal empire to take root. To take complete control of that environment, Bulger built his syndicate on 4 specific economic pillars. The first was the South Boston waterfront. Seizing the local docks meant controlling the region's massive physical infrastructure. With authority over the ports, Bulger could dictate exactly what illicit goods were allowed to enter the city and what went out. This flowchart maps the cycle of illicit debt. The gang operated as an alternative bank for residents lacking credit. A small loan quickly multiplied under exorbitant interest. When balances became unpayable, residents handed over deeds, their assets completely absorbed by the syndicate. By commanding the city's physical entry points and monopolizing the underground economy, Bulger effectively became the governing authority of local commerce. The third pillar formalized that authority through extortion. Bulger placed a systematic, illicit taxation grid over the entire neighborhood. He didn't limit this to illegal gambling dens. He targeted legitimate storefronts, proving his reach extended directly into the legal, above-ground economy. But the most destructive piece of his infrastructure was the fourth pillar, narcotics. Bulger flooded the isolated streets with high-yield drugs. This introduced a devastating, yet massively lucrative, stream of illicit capital into his network. The expansion into narcotics exposed a deep internal friction. Bulger traded on his status as a local figure to gain trust, even as his drug networks dismantled the families of the very neighborhood he grew up in. This map shows the geographical spread of these 4 pillars as they pushed block by block through the neighborhood. As the grid expanded, he eliminated all rival factions, ensuring no competitors survived to challenge his territory. Bulger had consumed the neighborhood. He achieved a monopoly over both violence and commerce in South Boston. By the late 1980s, the Winter Hill Gang was the undisputed governing authority in the region. Bulger had completely left the shadows. His name was spoken everywhere, and his reputation as a kingpin was public knowledge. He managed this web of drugs, debt, and violent extortion in broad daylight, making no effort to hide his operations from the public eye. At exactly the same time, federal agents were aggressively hunting down and dismantling his major rivals, the traditional New England mafia. Yet when it came to Bulger, local police and federal agencies seemed paralyzed. They mounted no meaningful investigations against him. There was a glaring contradiction between a highly visible crime lord operating freely and a justice system refusing to pull him in for questioning. If James Bulger was running an empire of narcotics and extortion right out in the open, why was no one trying to arrest him?